Akuto was an abandoned orphan who enrolled in a magic academy to become a high priest. However, everything changes when he discovers he's destined to become the next Demon King, so now all the girls fight over his demon sausage. Before that all happened, little Akuto was left at an orphanage by his mother to protect his identity, and his mother prayed for his safety, calling him their child of hope. Years later, Akuto is on his way to start his life at the magical academy when he stops to help an old lady with her luggage. However, he suddenly gets attacked by a blue-haired baddie who accuses Akuto of robbing her grandma, but the grandma tells her that Akuto was helping her. The girl apologizes and introduces herself as Junko, a student at the magical academy. They then head to the academy together, and on the train, Akuto tells her that he wants to change the world by becoming the high priest. She reveals that she came from a family that upholds righteous justice, and knowing that they have similar ideals, she shows him her support. She then pulls out her blade so they can make the pact on the condition that if either of them betrays their ideal, the other must murder them. After they arrive at the academy, they split up, and Akuto heads to the infirmary, where he meets Mitsuko, his homeroom teacher, who explains that every new student has to face a magical bird that can see what their jobs are in the future. Akuto is excited, knowing that he has a good heart and wants to be a high priest, but to his surprise, the bird tells Akuto that he will be the all-villainous Demon King, who was once known to be the greatest threat to humanity. While everyone panics at this, Akuto can't believe it because it's the opposite of what he wanted to become, so to calm him down, Mitsuko takes him on a walk, warning him that from now on, he will probably be targeted by people. When they reach his classroom, Mitsuko introduces Akuto to the class, but when he sees how scared they are, Akuto tries to convince them that he's not evil, and makes a speech about how the system is wrong for trying to decide their fates. But the people get more scared, saying that the previous Demon King did a similar speech just before he started a war. Before he gets to prove his innocence, Mitsuko orders him to take a seat and points him to the back of the class. She then starts the class, and the first thing she does is pick the class representative. She suggests that Junko be the class representative like before, but another student, Hiroshi, suggests that they pick Akuto as the class representative. Everyone is shocked by his suggestion, and Akuto quickly wants to withdraw, saying that he's more than happy to be a part of the cleaning duty as a community service. But hearing that, everyone panics again. Mitsuko explains that the cleaning committee is a group of people who go around destroying anything to protect the school's secrets. Not knowing about it, Akuto tries to explain himself, but Junko gets up in anger, saying that he betrayed his promise and her feelings, and challenges him to a duel. Everyone misunderstands, thinking that Akuto once promised to love her, clapped her cheeks, and left her dry. Hearing that angers her, so she hands him a wooden katana and launches devastating attacks at him, but Akuto manages to dodge them and grabs her from behind. He tries to calm her down and insists that he has no intention to hurt her because he likes her, but this makes the other students think they're dating, so Junko gets furious and attacks once more. Akuto catches her katana, and in that moment, he awakens a hidden power, and while Mitsuko tries to create a shield barrier, Akuto's power blows up the whole classroom, leaving everything in ruins and Junko unconscious. Later in the dorm, Hiroshi presents himself as Akuto's biggest fan, and he offers Akuto to ask him for anything. And Akuto asks him how he can get to the girls' dorm so he can apologize to Junko. Hiroshi leads him behind the girls' dorm, and when asked why, Hiroshi explains that rumors will spread if the Demon King were to walk into the dorm. Inside, Junko is tending to her wounds, still thinking about how Akuto told her that he liked her, which makes her feel all tingly inside. Just then, Akuto knocks on her window, and while he tries to apologize, Junko thinks it's a love confession. Other students in the dorm spot them, which makes Junko flustered, and out of embarrassment, she chases Akuto around with her sword. Akuto runs off to the woods, where he meets a red-haired weirdo, Sugo, who starts yapping about being Akuto's princess, and that she will protect him. When Junko appears, Sugo protects Akuto, refusing to leave him behind. She latches onto Akuto, and when Junko launches another attack, Akuto tries to block it, but awakens his power once more, blowing the whole woods like a nuke. It leaves Junko unconscious, and suddenly, a portal opens, and from it out comes a girl claiming to be an observer, who introduces herself as Coronet. She then pulls out a gun that's able to heal Junko from her wounds, and seeing this, Akuto realizes that she's an android. When Junko wakes up, she realizes the state she is in and runs away, but when Akuto tries to get to her, Coronet stops him, saying that she needs to interrogate him for what just happened. She adds that with the magnitude of the incident, she has to include the headmaster as well. Hearing that, Soga gets spooked, and suddenly she disappears, leaving only her clothes on the floor. But when Akuto grabs her plot protectors, she starts screaming and runs off flustered. Later, Coronet brings Akuto to face the headmaster, and after analyzing his emotions, Coronet concludes that Akuto has no bad intentions towards Junko. However, because he is predicted to be the next Demon King, the headmaster tells Akuto that Coronet will be observing him all the time from now on, so they can prevent prevent him from turning into the Demon King and hurting other people. After the meeting is over, Mitsuko tells Akuto that this is just a way for the school to protect him, considering that other students will be looking to end him for being the future Demon King. She then asks him about his powers, and Akuto explains that he doesn't know what happened, only that he tried to block Junko's attacks. Mitsuko concludes that what he's experiencing is that he couldn't control his own overwhelming mana, which she's not surprised by, considering he is the future Demon King. She then hands him the student's handbook, saying that he can communicate with anyone using it like using telepathy, and Akuto realizes that this item is what makes rumors about him spread faster. Later in his dorm room, Corona is also there observing him, and Akuto tells her that he feels uneasy with her being there. She asks him to give her an order, so Akuto tells her to go to sleep while he will do the same. But when he tries to tuck himself in, Corona decides to sleep next to him, and he struggles to sleep with her in her state. She teases him for wanting to spank his monkey and turn into Spurtimgu, and when he admits it, she decides to sleep in his drawers instead to not bother him further. But when Akuto tries to sleep for real, he keeps looking back and sees her peeking, and she admits that she likes to tease him, leaving him struggling to sleep. The next morning, Akuto heads to school with Corona and Hiroshi, and on their walk, they run into the purple-haired baddie, Fujiko, who introduces herself as the head of the girls' dorm. However, instead of scolding him for what happened the other night, she reveals that Corona told her what actually happened, and she expresses her condolences for Akuto for being the future's Demon King and even offers him to console with her anytime. That completely rizzes him up, believing that someone finally understood him. Later in class, it is announced that Junko and Sugo are absent, but the students are more focused on the fact that Akuto manages to bag a hot android and drags her around with him, which makes them all jealous. Then Akuto hides in the bathroom to call Fujiko with his student notebook, and she answers it while in the middle of changing her clothes. Akuto firstly thanks her for her words that morning and then asks her to help him make amends with Junko. He explains that he can't do that in public, not wanting to create a scene. Akuto agrees to help him and suggests that he go to the back mountain during lunch, but she suggests that he doesn't bring Corona with him and tells him that he can deactivate her by pulling on her tail. Meanwhile, outside the stall, Corona is waiting on Akuto. All the while the dudes there are confused why she's in the men's restroom, peeking at their willies. Then, with Hiroshi's help, Akuto discovers where the back mountain is located, and when asked why he wants to go there, he lies and makes an excuse, saying that he needs some fresh air with all the attention around him. Corona declares that she won't go there by himself, so she walks in front of him, entering the back mountain, all the while he's wondering how he can deactivate her. He tries to get a peek at where her tail is located, but the lower he goes, the more he looks like a creep. Suddenly, he gets hit by something invincible, and when Corona looks back, she accuses him of wanting to take a good look at the peaches. Suddenly, Corona senses a mana approaching, one that does not belong to a human. In that moment, they spot a demon dog, one that has been transformed by absorbing mana. Corona tries to neutralize it by using her gun, but when she fails, Akuto quickly saves her from getting attacked. Akuto then jumps on it, holding on for dear life, and using his ability, he turns the big dog into a little puppy. She asks what he did to it, and Akuto explains that after she told him that it absorbed mana, he neutralized it by purging the mana. Corona tells him that no mage has ever done that, so she decides to record it and report it back later. Suddenly, the dog attacks something, and they can hear Soga's voice, screaming out of fear of the dog. She shows herself while being unconscious, and when Akuto approaches her, she screams and goes back to being invisible. The two are in disbelief to find out she can actually turn invisible, and Corona says that while Android can't trace her while she's invisible, they can trace her scent through her clothing. She finds Soga's clothing bag, but while she's bending over, Akuto takes the chance to pull her tail, completely deactivating her. Suddenly, Fujiko pops up out of nowhere and informs him that he shouldn't worry, as androids won't remember anything after they're deactivated, and he only needs to pull her tail again to wake her up. She then talks about his issues with Junko and promises to tell Junko that he wants to meet her, knowing that Junko won't suspect a thing if it comes from Fujiko. He thanks her for her help, and Fujiko then brings up that Akuto wanted to join the cleaning committee. He confirms that it's true, so Fujiko offers him to join the disciplinary committee, and Akuto quickly accepts, wanting to help the school. Then Fujiko hands him drugs, saying that they are magical medicine alongside a gun that is capable of shooting the drugs. She says that the medicine is capable of making people understand each other's feelings, suggesting he shoots it at Junko. And when Akuto hesitates, Fujiko tells him that he should use it as a backup plan, which he agrees to do. Fujiko then leaves him in awe, finally meeting someone so kind as Fujiko. Afterwards, Akuto wakes up Corona and not remembering anything. She accuses him once again of wanting a peek. They then examine Soga's backpack, and suddenly, a floating hairpin walks by. Akuto recognizes the hairpin and is in disbelief to know that the girl he gave it to in the past is actually Soga. Chased by the dog, Soga jumps on Akuto, wearing nothing but plots, and Corona quickly calls him a creep and that he should be reported. Akuto begs Soga to do something, and she agrees to do it as long as Akuto listens to her request. Akuto agrees, and Soga quickly tells Korone that she was the one who jumped on him, freeing Akuto from the accusations. But while Akuto is celebrating, Soga presents her request, asking Akuto to be her friend. Meanwhile, Junko is still recovering from her injuries when Fujiko calls her. She tells Junko that Akuto wants to meet her, but instead of telling the truth, she states that Akuto threatens to make her gobble his glizzy, but she doesn't ask Junko. Hearing that, Junko quickly acts and says that she will finish the job, leaving Fujiko happy. Fujiko then enters her secret lair, and her older brother, who is a talking head, asks her what she's up to now, and Fujiko tells him that she's planning to make the Demon King her slave. For years, Fujiko always had a brother complex and her brother always loved her, but when her brother died, her mother told her that her brother shamed their family and that Fujiko would now inherit the family's name. Back in the present, the brother tries to scold Fujiko for being an evil woman, but she does not care and insists that the power that Akuto holds will be hers, and she will control him like a good dog. Meanwhile, Akuto is taking a bath with Hiroshi, and they discuss Junko. Hiroshi reveals that Junko is the school's public leader, and she was appointed to that position because of her sense of justice, knowing that the school has students who practice black magic, so they needed Junko to track them down. When Akuto finishes his bath, he runs into Korone outside, who's curious about why men are obsessed with the size of their dingaline. She asks to see his slimy pickle, but Akuto refuses and closes the door on her. Just then, Akuto receives a call from Fujiko, who informs him that she has set up a meeting between him and Junko in a basement, which Akuto agrees to attend. But the next day, he meets up with the student council so he can join the disciplinary committee. They taunt him for only joining so he can manipulate the system as the Demon King. But when he tries to assure them that he has no bad intentions, they choose to trust him and see his results. Later in the dorm room, Akuto is preparing his medicine gun for his meeting with Junko, but he knows that he needs to do something about Korone first. He sits down and slowly tries to slip his hand near her tail, but before he gets to pull it, Soga pops up in the window, shocking him. She comes inside, eats some rice crackers, and says that as his friend, she would like to visit him more often. She presents him with a rice cooker, saying that she loves rice so much she carries rice cookers around, so she wants to give him one so she can keep coming back and eat rice with him as a friend. After a few hours of yapping along with them, Akuto tells Soga that he needs to study, and she realizes that she's bothering. So she leaves the room, leaving him with the rice cooker. Then, Korone jokes around about him wanting to touch her peaches, and he takes on her offer. But at that moment, he grabs onto her tail and pulls it, deactivating her so he can meet up with Junko. Then he heads to a meeting place deep in the mountains, where a facility is located. Inside, he fully expects to meet Junko there, but instead, he gets whacked from behind. Suddenly, more evil goons pop up, ready to beat the living hell out of him. But when one tries to touch him, he gets electrocuted and Akuto gets up like he's rising from the dead, casually thanking them for helping him better understand his powers. They ignore the godly aura and attack again, only for Akuto to begin snapping their legs by manipulating the surrounding mana. But then the goons drag in Hiroshi, who they beat up to a pulp and capture, but instead of surrendering, Akuto escalates further, flinging the rest around with his abilities before tying up the boss. Suddenly, Junko arrives, and from seeing the bodies on the floor, she accuses Akuto of plotting to dominate the entire school as part of his grand plan for world conquest. Akuto tries to explain what happened, but she refuses to hear him. Out of desperation, he reaches for the medicine gun to end the chaos and make her like him, but freezes when he sees that the drugs are not in the gun. Junko immediately sets off a smoke bomb and escapes, vowing to gather everyone opposed to him and confront him head-on. Meanwhile, Fujiko watches the chaotic scene through her crystal ball, stunned that it didn't go according to her plan. Her torso-less brother asks what kind of drug she gave him, and she says that it was one that would make people fall for her and pledge their loyalty like a slave. But after seeing his ruthlessness and manliness, Fujiko can't help but play her roast beef, secretly wanting to be taken to Pound Town by him. Then, Akuto takes Hiroshi to his room and explains everything to Korone, who scolds him for what he did and tells him that he needs to take responsibility. Meanwhile, Junko is in her room, preparing for the upcoming battle against Akuto, but deep down she feels a tingly, lingering feeling for him, which she desperately tries to wrestle against. But unbeknownst to her, Soga is there listening. The next day, Junko issues a broadcast summoning all of Akuto's haters to join her in a final showdown to end his rise as the Demon King, saying that the school has allowed them to do anything to eliminate Akuto within 1 hour. Within minutes, the entire school devolves into open warfare, with nearly every student chasing him down. Akuto attempts to flee but gets cornered, and Junko approaches, sword drawn, prepared to finish him. As she raises her sword to cut his head off clean, Soga suddenly rushes in, repeating what Akuto has been trying to tell her and bluntly stating that Junko just needs to accept her feelings for him. Hearing that, the students feel betrayed for being dragged into what now looks like a battle between two lovers and instantly turn on her. Without any other choice, Junko braces to defend herself. She then apologizes and gets ready to fight at his side. But before either can move, Korone fires her bazooka and unleashes a shower of rice across campus. To everyone's surprise, the rice instantly turns everyone's show like they just got off a session with Snoop Dogg and his devil's lettuce. Later in Akuto's room, Korone examines the rice to determine what caused the sudden shift, and Soga casually explains that she stole the special pills from his gun to fuse them with the rice, knowing that they make people get along. But then, after analyzing, Korone reveals that the drugs actually turned whoever ingests them into obedient slaves for a short time, and Akuto now realizes that Fujiko is fishy. Meanwhile, because of the drugs, all the girls affected by the drugs swarm Fujiko in her room, making her squeal continuously till the morning. The following morning, Fujiko watches Akuto from afar as he chats with Hiroshi, silently promising to make him bark for her no matter what it takes. Meanwhile, Akuto clogs that Soga is absent again, and when he asks Hiroshi, he explains that it's because she can't use magic properly and only really knows how to fly. Hearing that, Akuto realizes that, except for him, nobody really knows that she can turn invisible. A few minutes later, everyone pairs up to practice mana manipulation with the orbs, and Junko approaches Akuto and says the teacher assigned her to be his partner. He instinctively grabs her hand to thank her for picking him, but she quickly yanks it back when people gossip about her being his baby mama. Training begins with students tossing mana balls back and forth. Junko explains that the training is for him to learn how to use his power, so he hands him the orb and asks him to throw it back gently so he won't hurt her. Akuto promises to take it slow, but the second he throws the ball back, the entire field detonates in an explosion, yeeting Junko unconscious and giving a déjà vu from their first explosion. Eventually, he finds somewhere to sit, accepting that he's a walking disaster with no hope of mastering his powers. Mitsuko rushes over and says Junko only fainted from shock and isn't hurt, but then Mitsuko suggests that he try the mental strength chamber to give his mind enough endurance to handle his abilities. Hiroshi immediately warns him that no one has ever survived 12 hours inside without dying, but Mitsuko silences him so that Akuto will accept. Later, Akuto goes back to his room to pack, and while he does, Korone announces she's tagging along to keep observing him. Meanwhile, in Fujiko's chamber, she has a deadly serious expression on her face. Her brother asks her what happened, and she explains that Akuto will be trapped in the chamber for 12 hours, and she's thinking of how to use the opportunity to finally obtain what she wants from him, making him her loyal puppy. Her brother calls her evil again, but out of anger, she tells him to shut his mouth. She remembers how their mother explained how he died years ago, saying that he discovered something strange during an investigation and died before he could report it. When the government used necromancy to interrogate him, he couldn't remember anything, so they concluded he scared himself to death like a coward, bringing shame to their family. At night, Akuto arrives at the chamber and says goodbye to Korone before stepping inside alone. But then, once inside, he realizes that behind him, Korone snuck in and is now stuck for the next 12 hours with him. She then scoots close and presses her plastic jugs against his arm, insisting it's part of the mental training, even as he tries to create some breathing room. While Akuto is scolding her for sneaking in, he sees a floating package and grabs it, making it release happy noises. Soga presents herself from her invisibility, and she explains that she just wanted to join him and bring snacks and a rice cooker, but the door shut before she could leave. At that same moment, Fujiko appears outside with a special bullet laced with hallucination magic, and she plans to shoot Akuto with it to break his mind with non-stop illusions until he's soft enough for her charms. Inside, Akuto leans back to relax, but the wall crumbles, revealing an old school map marked with coordinates for 3 mysterious keys. Soga gets hyped, assuming it leads to treasure, but he doesn't give it much thought and moves away to begin meditation. Suddenly, Soga starts tweaking, saying that her bladder has reached its limit and she's about to pee herself. Akuto offers her his waterproof bag to pee in, which he brought just for emergencies, but she refuses, not wanting to do her business in front of Akuto. Korone casually suggests that Soga pee in her mouth since she can convert it to internal energy, and Akuto and Soga stare at her like she's completely insane. Soga grows more desperate and bangs on the door, begging to be let out so she can turn on her sprinkler. Outside, Fujiko hears the noise and assumes Akuto has already gone crazy inside. She sees this as a great chance for her to be a savior, so she opens the door, expecting him to lick her toes, but instead, Soga blitzes out and knocks her flat while sprinting off to empty herself. Soga accidentally drops the treasure map, and when Fujiko sees it and its content, she takes it away with her and leaves. Back in her room, she asks her brother what the coordinates mean, as she recognizes that it's written in his handwriting. But the talking head doesn't remember a thing, which confuses her even more because an undead like him physically can't lie. The next day, while she's still bothered by the mystery, a strange girl walks up to her and says she sympathizes with Fujiko since she failed to make the Demon King her underling. Fujiko is stunned, questioning who this girl is, and the girl casually claims she has permission to be on campus and walks away. Suddenly, noise erupts nearby. Fujiko runs toward it, only to see the treasure map she took being displayed on a huge school screen. Alarmed, she rushes back to her chamber and finds that the original map is gone. Furious, she assumes Akuto stole it. Meanwhile, Akuto and Koro Ned discover copies of the map plastered all over the school walls, immediately assuming Fujiko is the culprit. Then, Fujiko confronts Akuto, accusing him of spreading the map to manipulate students with greed. But Koro Ned points behind her, revealing the true culprit, who turns out to be Soga, who is happily pasting copies of the map everywhere. When Fujiko asks what she thinks she's doing, Soga replies she's just giving the students the information they need to start treasure hunting. Afterward, Akuto meets with Riri, the student council president, explaining that the situation has gotten worse because some students had already gone to the location and came back with injuries. Riri tells him to give a school-wide announcement as the disciplinary committee's representative, warning students not to go treasure hunting. During the assembly, Akuto tries to tell the students to stop treasure hunting due to how dangerous it is, but they immediately accuse him of orchestrating the whole scheme as another step in his supposed world takeover as the Demon King. The crowd starts booing and throwing things at him, but out of nowhere, the green-haired fighter from before charges at Akuto, choking him by the neck with her snoo-snoo. She announces that Akuto alone should search for the treasure to clear his name, and the crowd agrees with her demands. With no other choice, Akuto accepts and asks who she is. She tells him that her name is Eiko, and Fujiko is wondering where this wild is from. Akuto later meets Riri again to talk about his situation, and she tells him that all he has to do is investigate the place and come back, which makes Akuto think that she's hiding something. Before he starts the journey, Fujiko meets him and hands him the magic gun to help him, which he accepts. Hiroshi and Koro Ned join him on his journey, but suddenly, Eiko pops up to latch onto him, refusing to be left behind. So they all head to where the map is leading them, and once they get there, Korona looks at the map and reads out a name, Yamato Boichiro, which is someone they don't recognize and are now curious about. Once they enter the chamber, they find the graves of fallen warriors from the last Great War, and Akuto tells everyone to look for the strange name shown on the map. Koro Ned then finds some used bullets and comments that a fight must have happened here, and Akuto replies that whoever did it had zero respect for the dead. Hearing this righteous speech from a supposed Demon King feels weird to Teruya, but Akuto firmly repeats that he is, and he is not planning to be. Hearing this, Eiko calls him boring, but suddenly, Akuto pulls out his magic gun and points it at her. It turns out that behind her is a monster, and they face it. Meanwhile, Junko sneaks into Akuto's room to confront him, but only finds Soga sleeping there, while Akuto is nowhere to be found. She wakes Soga up and asks where he went. Soga lazily reveals that he left with Koro Ned Miwa and a girl named Teruya Eiko. Hearing the name Teruya, Junko instantly bolts out to find him, realizing that they are in trouble. Back in the chamber ruins, Eiko tries slicing through the tornadoes but gets launched like a pathetic dormant. Seeing her defeated expression, Akuto gets serious, charging the magic gun with his mana before firing a single shot that completely evaporates the tornado monster. Eiko instantly recovers and leaps onto him again to celebrate, but while trying to get her sweet cheeks off his neck, Akuto falls and spots the tombstone they were looking for. Inside the grave, he finds a toy containing a voice message referencing something called the Chamber of Nights. As they try to decode it, Fujiko, who is secretly watching everything with a hidden camera, recognizes the toy. Her brother explains that he used to use the toy to talk to her during missions, but he still can't remember anything that happened to him the night he did. Fujiko starts to tear up, but she gets interrupted when Soba drops in from above with everything hanging out and convinces her to catch up to Akuto and the others, saying that this way they can find out more about her brother. At the same time, Junko continues racing toward the ruins to save Akuto from Eiko's schemes, knowing she's bad news, but she suddenly falls straight into a giant sinkhole. Back with Akuto and the others, they locate the Chamber of Nights and enter cautiously. Suddenly, Hiroshi freaks out, claiming he saw one of the giant knights move. Akuto tells him to quit being dramatic, but as soon as he turns around, the knight attacks. Hiroshi tries to help but gets himself yeeted, so Akuto locks in, catches the knight's axe, and uses it back against it, forcing it to retreat. He then scolds Hiroshi for trying to play hero, but Hiroshi tells Akuto that he doesn't know what it feels like to be a weak bum like him, especially not with the Demon King powers he possesses. Hearing that, Akuto apologizes for not understanding his feelings. Then, they search deeper inside until Akuto finds a stone tablet suggesting there's a hidden body body of water in the ruins. Coronet then offers to track it using her special tongs. Following her through the woods, Hiroshi rambles about rumors he heard regarding secret hot springs. And sure enough, they soon reach an opening where the hot springs await. Hiroshi then points out that there's more water behind the wall, so Akuto immediately strips down and dives in to explore. Eiko sees her shot for some alone time, slips in behind him, and sticks on his body while pressing her melons on his back. Right in that moment, Junko, who crawled her way out of the pit, is enjoying herself in the other side of the spring, but he hears the two talking. Akuto confronts Eiko for not telling the truth, and Eiko tells Akuto that the Demon King's legacy is the true treasure and suggests he take it for himself. Before Akuto can react, Junko climbs a cliff and drops down to attack him, only to realize it's actually him and dives underwater to hide her honey cave. Junko reveals that Eiko is an Imperial agent who works for the government, and with her cover blown, Eiko attacks her. During all this chaos, Akuto spots a shrine in the middle of the spring, but on top of it is a wolf lurking and stalking them. The wolf charges at them, but Akuto leaps in, saves Junko and yeets the beast away. It charges again, but when it bites Akuto's arm, it collapses and falls asleep. Eiko gets offended that he protected Junko, tosses him a key she found near the springs and storms off. Fujiko and Soga arrive, and Fujiko admits she's the one who put the monster to sleep. When Junko asks Fujiko why she's even here, Fujiko demands to see what they found. They show her the doll, the screen, and the key. She recognizes two items, and when she turns the key to check it, a teleportation portal opens up. She falls in, and everyone follows her. On the other side, they face a giant castle, but then Riri appears with student council members and congratulates them for passing the test, saying that the treasure hunt was something they created. Riri even offers to kiss Akuto as a reward, but Junko doesn't believe a word they are saying and demands an explanation. Suddenly, Fujiko runs toward the giant building in front of them, alarming Riri. Akuto tries to chase her, but Rara blocks him, warning that it's dangerous. She reveals they're at the Demon King's old base, and Akuto cannot come in contact with it. Fujiko reaches the base, inserts the key, scans her hand, and activates the seal with the doll, summoning a dragon. It asks Fujiko if she is worthy of controlling him and threatens to whack her dead if she does not. Akuto tries to go help her, but Riri stops him, saying that the dragon cannot know that he is the Demon King. Then Fujiko suddenly sees her brother's memories of how a mysterious blonde-haired man manipulated him into erasing his memories and then strangled him. Seeing this, Fujiko breaks down in tears, realizing that her brother was never a coward. Akuto has had enough and decides he's going to save her anyway. Riri refuses to let that happen, so she swings at him, making him bleed. Junko jumps in to help him, and Riri warns that if she is helping him, she is helping the Demon King. Junko promises that if Akuto ever becomes the Demon King, she will end him herself. But Akuto gets up and says that he doesn't want to become the Demon King, but only to save Fujiko. He forces his way through, reaches the dragon, and saves Fujiko. The dragon demands a duel with him to prove his worth, and Akuto accepts. Everyone watches as Akuto lays the smackdown on this dumb lizard and successfully drops him. Being impressed by Akuto, the dragon introduces himself as Peterhausen and declares that Akuto is his new master. Akuto tries to refuse, but the dragon explains that now that he is awake, he needs the Demon Kins as his master, with no other choice. Akuto decides to fulfill that role and be called the Demon King just for the dragon. Fujiko coddles him for saving her, and Rara gives him a little kiss for what he just did. In the end, Akuto decides to live there after Peterhausen demands it. A few days later, Coronet has a secret phone call with people from the government about her mission, and they decide that the best way to handle Akuto is to exploit his love for cheeks, cakes, and women. They give her the mission to make him fall for her, but warn her that if she fails, she will be fired. At school, there is a planned beach trip for the Seaside school, but Akuto is informed by Mitsuko that he is barred from joining. He spends the night sulking in bed until Coronet suddenly climbs in and offers to let him clap her. Before he can react, her hand goes straight for his slimy pickle, and Akuto has to quickly retreat. She then decides to allow him to join the Seaside school, and when asked why, she explains that she wants him to enjoy his youth and learn how to turn on a woman's sprinkler. She offers to help him sleep, saying that they can even break the bed. But when Akuto rejects her and her approach, Coronet retreats to her closet and sleeps. The next morning, she wakes him by giving him an elbow drop and even turning his sausage into minced beef, pushing him close to creaming. After calming down, he asks why she's acting like a pickle-obsessed freak, but instead of answering, she wants to do a trial and error, testing different costumes to see his reaction and which one gets him bricked up. He rejects her every attempt and explains that he only cares about meaningful relationships with women he genuinely likes and reminds her they need to get to class since the first lesson is already starting. For the next week or so, she tries everything in her power to get him to want to expand her domain, but Akuto gets overwhelmed and runs off to Peterhausen's place. Instead, he finds Soga casually sleeping on him, and even Peterhausen says that he's surprised to see a human that comfortable near him. When he tries explaining his plan to escape Korone, she conveniently appears and asks if he prefers a girl like Soga instead. Confused, he questions whether she cares about his feelings, and Korone explains that she just wants to know his preferences so she can please him better. Days later, at the beach for Seaside School, Akuto eventually finds himself enjoying the Seaside School trip with everyone else. While the students play in the sand, Soga casually asks if he wants to play with her plots instead. When he tells her they're too small for his glizzy, she becomes even more excited since she has more room to grow. Just then, Korone presses her melons into his back and asks him to help apply sunscreen, but he immediately moves away and says it's impossible since she's wearing a thick swimsuit. To solve the problem, she just starts taking it off, forcing him to throw a towel at her. While thinking about her degenerate activities, Akuto suddenly realizes he's been holding Korone's pepperonis this whole time. Junko spots and tries to slash him, so Korone forces him to grab hers too for diversity of sensation, nearly getting him sent to the Shadow Realm in the process. After calming down, he makes Korone apologize to Junko, but Junko remains furious that Korone even pulled something like that. From her reaction, Korone concludes that she's still inexperienced and offers to help Junko find her way around a glizzy using Akuto's slimy pickle. While Junko screams at her, Akuto realizes every student now thinks he has conquered both of these girls' caves, and when he tries to explain to save Junko's honor, everyone now starts thinking that it's normal for them. Moments later, Akuto finds Junko hiding and apologizes for ruining her reputation again. He asks if she wants to swim with him, and while she wants to get mad at his request, he admits he's never had the chance to just hang out normally with anyone, which softens her. Junko gets Soga to join, but in the middle of their fun, Soga plays with a sea cucumber and starts stroking it, causing it to shoot out white cream and splatter it all on Junko. She grabs Akuto, and while helping her clean the jizz off her face, he expresses how glad he is to hang out with the Junko he knew before he was called the Demon King. Suddenly, Korone whips off her swimsuit, and Junko immediately flees in shame while Akuto yells at Korone for going too far and forgetting she's supposed to be observing him, not bothering everyone else around him. After apologizing, Korone admits she just doesn't want him to forget she genuinely likes him, and walks away, confusing him and Junko. Later, Akuto suddenly stops and says someone has been watching him. Soga spots Hiroshi, and Akuto rushes to ask where he's going. Hiroshi reveals that the island is his hometown, but his gloomy expression makes Akuto concerned. Hiroshi explains that a local legend about the Demon King is why they didn't want Akuto to come. According to the legend, a monster will appear when the Demon King shows up, and a hero is destined to defeat them both. But since nothing like that happened with the previous Demon King, Akuto tells Hiroshi to forget the nonsense. Hiroshi refuses, saying Akuto's strength makes him unable to understand the fears of normal people like Hiroshi. He runs off, but before he chases him, Akuto hears his stalker's voice, so he decides to confront them. Hours later, Akuto steps out of the party to track the spy. Korone meets him and says she sensed the same thing. Akuto says he's going after the spy, and Korone immediately pulls out a mana detection device to help him. Meanwhile, Fujiko is meeting with Peterhausen and explains her plan to conquer the world with Akuto. Peterhausen is thrilled because he's tired of having such a non-ambitious master, but at that moment, Riri appears and tells Fujiko that Korone has been ordered by the government to seduce Akuto, shocking her. Riri declares she'll now oppose the system and defeat the Ministry of Magical Intelligence, and warns that this makes her an enemy. But Riri says she'll bring down anyone trying to use Akuto as a tool. After Riri leaves, Fujiko tries to contact Akuto but can't, so she sends Soga instead. Soga tells Akuto that a powerful group skilled in eliminating mages wants to send him to his death. But Akuto doesn't take her words seriously, thinking that Soga is messing around. She starts drinking booze and falls into his arms. When he notices her hairpin, Akuto asks if they met long ago. She doesn't understand and simply says they must have been destined to meet. She falls asleep on him, leaving him wondering why she makes him feel so calm. She suddenly wakes up and tries to kiss him, but Korone kicks them apart, ruining the moment. Suddenly, a gunshot is fired, and when they look back, Korone is hit. Months ago, at the start of the school year, Hiroshi learned from the future reading bird that he was actually a hero. The result shocked him so much that he and Mitsuko agreed to keep it on the down low, mostly because nobody would believe it anyway. Back in the present, Korone collapses to the ground, and as Akuto tries to help her, she tells him not to worry and pulls herself up like she didn't just take a bullet. She then randomly asks if he has feelings for Soga, and he wonders why she's thinking about his love life at a moment like this. This makes Akuto ask if she's mad about what he did earlier, and she says that she's not, but admits that it's unfavorable for her. Korone then mutters something about failing her mission, and quietly says this might be the last time they ever see each other. Then, she opens a portal thanks him for all the time they spent together, and disappears. Minutes after she leaves, Soga finally remembers the second part of the message Fujiko told Koro-ne to deliver, and that is that Fujiko had informed Soga that Koro-ne was ordered to seduce Akuto. And judging by how Akuto is with Koro-ne, Fujiko doubted she would succeed, meaning she would be fired from her position as Akuto's observer. Across the island, Miwa reunites with his sister Yukiko, but while they talk, some visiting villagers start talking about him behind his back, saying that he and his small willy, small body build will never become a hero. The sister asks about the Demon King studying at his academy, and Hiroshi tries to tell her that Akuto is actually a nice guy, but then they overhear two guests loudly saying Hiroshi is too weak to protect their village. Feeling hurt, Hiroshi returns to the dorm so he can cry himself to sleep, leaving his sister worried. The next morning, Yukiko visits the dorm and asks Akuto if he's the Demon King, but he denies it, saying people just call him that. She then asks if her brother is the hero, but Akuto cluelessly replies that he isn't even sure Hiroshi wants to be a hero. When she hears that, Yukiko concludes that Hiroshi is not a real hero and runs away in tears. Hiroshi and Soga chase her, while Junko calls Akuto stupid for saying what he said, not caring what Yukiko or Hiroshi would feel. Meanwhile, a few minutes later, Hiroshi and Soga end up by a lake, and Soga admits that she was shocked to hear he's a hero. Hiroshi finally explains the island legend that beneath the lake lies the mark of the hero, which is a tiny sword stuck inside a boulder that only the hero can pull out. He then admits his grandpa set the whole thing up, meaning that the legend is fake. Suddenly, they hear another sound, and when they track it down, they find a creepy dude who looks like he's gooning. But from his jacket, he releases a devastating noise that summons a monster sea cucumber, surprising Soga and Hiroshi. But then, they see that Yukiko is dangerously close to the freak, and when the man clocks her, he immediately starts doing freaky things to her. Hiroshi tries to save her by casting magic, but the spell gets absorbed. The villain explains that the sea cucumber is a mana-draining beast, so Hiroshi's magic is useless. Soga tries to sneak behind him while invisible, but gets caught, and in the middle of it, Yukiko is let go. As Yukiko runs, she declares her brother the hero who will defeat him. Hearing this, the creep laughs at her statement and starts beating up Hiroshi like a rag doll to show Yukiko that her brother is a bum before throwing him into the water. Later that night, Akuto and Junko encounter the same freak, who proudly introduces himself as Mr. X, and Akuto instantly realizes that he's the one who's been spying on him. Mr. X instantly senses Akuto's mana and gets so excited that he drops both girls to demand a real fight. Seeing their terrified faces, Akuto snaps and transforms into a juiced-up version of himself. He demolishes Mr. X with several savage combos and almost finishes him permanently, but Soga begs him not to. Akuto then asks this creep what he truly wants, and Mr. X admits that his plan is to let the sea cucumber wipe out the island. He then blasts Akuto with painful sound waves from his jacket, and Akuto fights through it, but his mana keeps draining, so Mr. X brags about his anti-magic ability before beating Akuto to a pulp. Meanwhile, underwater, Hiroshi is slowly fading, slowly accepting that he can never be a hero. But then, he remembers his sister's hope and decides to stop being useless. He swims into the secret cave under the lake, and using every last ounce of his energy, he pulls out the hero's sword. It turns into a watch on his wrist, and the next thing he knows is he's wearing a Temu Kamen Rider costume. Hiroshi realizes that with this, he can finally become the hero everyone expected him to be and defeat Mr. X back on land. Akuto figures out how to counter Mr. X's sound waves and starts delivering the McDonald's 3-piece fried chicken with extra fries and a cheeseburger on him. He overwhelms him, but Mr. X gets up again and tries to explode the girls. However, Koro-ne returns, blocks the attack, and tells them that she negotiated a deal to come back. She recognizes Mr. X as part of the government's program and is unfit for service in the Ministry of Magical Intelligence and neutralizes him instantly. Meanwhile, the sea cucumber is already rampaging through Hiroshi's hometown. But then, in the skies, Hiroshi flies in with his new superhero suit and defeats the giant Willy, saving everyone. And he announces himself as the superhero called Brave. He then tries to execute Mr. X, but Akuto stops him, saying it doesn't need to escalate. Hiroshi flies off, then returns to them in his normal wimpy form, saying that the hero Brave saved him. The next day, Koro-ne explains how she negotiated her way from being terminated, and Akuto asks if the seduction mission is still active. She says yes, and Akuto tells her there's no way she'll succeed now that he knows. But then, Koro-ne explains she only did all that to ensure that he's not lip around women, and that her real plan was to guide him into marrying a decent girl from a powerful family. She casually suggests Junko, which shocks Junko so hard that she immediately flees in embarrassment. Days later, Eiko meets up with a man named Yamato to ask why the plan for Akuto's death failed. Yamato says the ruins incident didn't follow his exact script, then tells her to focus on Junko next. Eiko immediately sprints off to cook up another diabolical scheme. The next day, Akuto dreams about the day Soga first arrived at his orphanage. After spending all his savings on the hairpin he gave her, he told her to keep it safe since it might be the only way they recognize each other years later. Suddenly, in the present, Soga finds him sleeping under a tree and decides to sit beside him for a chat. She asks for his birthday, and he says the 25th of December, but explains that he never actually had one because none of the nuns could figure out who abandoned him at the doorstep. As she keeps yapping, he notices her hairpin and asks if they really never met before, but she claims she doesn't remember. She then asks him if he will attend her birthday, and he promises that he will. Meanwhile, Fujiko reaches the deepest part of the ruins in search of magic monsters for her plan to impress Akuto and make him hers. She starts imagining scenarios where he fully does the dirty with her, but a monster snaps her back to reality by grabbing all her melons with its tentacles. She struggles not to cream to the slimy sensation and explodes the freaky monster. Just then, she finds an egg in the monster's remains, but just as she picks it up, Peterhausen appears and asks why she's in the ruins. Fujiko quickly hides the egg and claims that she's hunting down monsters for Akuto. Peterhausen fully understands, saying that more monsters have appeared since Akuto awakened his powers. Meanwhile, Akuto and Hiroshi are watching a news report about the new superhero, Brave, who has been destroying monsters and becoming everyone's new favorite. Akuto questions Brave's actions as a vigilante, and Hiroshi instantly defends his own secret identity, insisting that as long as people are safe, nothing else matters. Just then, Yuki, a popular idol, shows up on television, and Hiroshi gets excited seeing the object of his gooning sessions. Yuki is promoting a new rice seasoning, but Soga believes that rice is best when eaten as it is. Akuto finally asks why she cares more about food than her studies, and she takes it to heart, stops eating for the day, and leaves to nap. Still worried, Akuto wonders how to get her back into class, and Hiroshi reveals she's good at academics but struggles socially because of her low magic level. Akuto is confused since magic levels are usually predetermined, so Koro-ne explains that high mana people are seen as godlike, while low magic individuals like Soga get treated like trash. Akuto gets frustrated with the unfair treatment Soga receives and declares that he will change the world. Hiroshi heads out, but pauses at a water fountain, thinking about what he should do next. Later, Akuto approaches Soga and invites her to class. She instantly strips and flies off with her invisible magic, leaving him stunned and chasing after her. When he returns, Koro-ne points out that hanging around Soga has also ruined her reputation, since being friends with the Demon King is basically a social death sentence. Later in the cafeteria, Akuto tells Soga he intends to stop being friends with her to protect her. Soga appreciates his gesture, gives him a tight hug, and then flies off. Junko sees this, gets jealous, and then tries to play it cool when Akuto catches her peeking. She and Akuto talk privately about Soga not caring about her academy life, but Junko says that she can't help, apologizes, and walks away. But back home, Junko regrets what she did and still feels the pressure from what Koro-ne said about her marrying Akuto. Meanwhile, Fujiko is watching over the egg, and in the middle of it, she takes a nap, and in that moment, Soga takes it away. Then, Soga arrives in Akuto's room with the egg and suggests that they make fried rice with it. Meanwhile, Fujiko wakes up and realizes the egg is gone. Her brother tells her how the egg was floating, and Fujiko knows exactly who took it. Back in Akuto's room, Hiroshi arrives, and when he sees the gigantic egg, he quickly points out it's a monster's egg. When Akuto picks her up, the egg begins glowing, so he throws it out of the window. When they rush outside, they find it has grown to the size of their entire dorm building. Akuto touches it, and his mana causes the egg to crack, unleashing a massive two-headed monster chicken. It instantly starts rampaging across the academy, and Akuto tries to stop it, but barely leaves a scratch. When he sees Soga in danger, he realizes the chaos all started because of her smooth-brained plan. Just then, Fujiko arrives, revealing she raised the creature and can control it. But when she tries to, the chicken grabs her and starts tearing up her clothes. Akuto rescues her before it gets too freaky, but the chicken escapes and storms into the city. Meanwhile, Hiroshi transforms into Brave and goes after it because his idol, Yuri, happens to be filming a commercial there. She and her camera crew try to flee and nearly get smushed, but Hiroshi arrives just in time, slicing off the chicken's head to save his favorite gooning material. Seeing how manly and heroic Brace is, Yuki gives Hiroshi a kiss as his reward. The next day, Akuto explains everything to Riri, who reassures him that things are fine, considering the academy is left untouched. When he steps out, he runs into Soga again, and she declares she'll start attending class more often, which he's happy about. Meanwhile, Junko asks Koro-ne if she was joking about the marriage conversation the day before. Coronet says she wasn't, and mentions that she already sent an official marriage proposal request to her father, which he accepted, shocking Junko. Days later, Junko is tweaking over how she's supposed to tell Akuto that her father wants to meet him about the marriage proposal. Coronet strolls in, catches the panicking immediately, and says she knows Junko is struggling because she's already imagining herself and Akuto doing hot yoga. Junko denies it, insisting the marriage is purely political, and Coronet tells her to stop lying, saying that if it were truly just political, she wouldn't be freaking out. Junko says she doesn't even know where Akuto is, so Coronet reveals his Akuto locator, and they follow it to the cafeteria. There, Junko tries to ask Akuto to visit her family home since the vacation starts tomorrow, but she accidentally tells Hiroshi, who's confused why she's inviting him to a vacation. When Akaba turns around, she instantly panics and turns it into a group outing, telling Hiroshi to come along to soften the blow. Coronet reminds them she also has to tag along as Akuto's observer, and everyone agrees. Later, as Akuto walks across campus, he overhears the blonde guy and the principal talking about the recent monster activities. Blondie mentions how monster activity has spiked ever since the Demon King awakened, and then stares directly at Akuto like he's blaming him. Akuto picks up on the shade and confronts him, but the guy only asks if Akuto truly hasn't noticed his responsibility yet. On the train to Junko's family's place, Akuto keeps thinking about this until he spots Soga waving goodbye from outside. Hiroshi mentions she'll be lonely, but Akuto says it's fine, as they won't be gone for long. The moment they arrive, a girl ambushes them, but Junko blocks the attack instantly. It turns out to be her sister Yuko, who's just testing Junko's abilities, ensuring she hasn't gone rusty, while Hiroshi almost collapses because he instantly recognizes her as the girl who kissed him during their last encounter. Yuko notices Junko acting shy around Akuto and asks why she wants to marry someone so dangerous, which flusters Junko, so she threatens to turn into an only child if Yuko doesn't shut her pole. On their walk, Yuko tells Hiroshi that Akuto smells like a magical beast, because after she survived a magic beast attack years ago, she can now sense creatures with extreme mana levels. Then, Akuto meets Junko's dad, and the man asks Akuto if he's ready to protect Junko's honor, despite the chaos surrounding him. Akuto is fully clueless and interprets this as a normal father-daughter talk, so he vows to protect Junko with his life. Hearing this, the father lights up and immediately orders a feast. As they party through the night, Akuto sits there wondering why everyone is celebrating like he just won a Grammy. Meanwhile, Junko is bathing, and her anxiety kicks in. She battles whether or not she should ride Akuto's glizzy tonight, and after going back and forth with herself, she decides she's going full rodeo. That night, Junko visits Akuto in his room with the most desperate, determined expression he's ever seen. Junko takes a breath and reaches for her robe, clearly ready for a domain expansion, but Akuto stops her, saying she doesn't need to force herself just to satisfy her family. It's there that Junko realizes that he truly hasn't understood anything, so she explains that everyone expects him to marry her. Akuto is shocked and apologizes for not realizing sooner, knowing that she doesn't want to marry him. But unbeknownst to him, that hurts her badly. She leaves heartbroken, telling him to forget everything. Akuto tries to process it, but suddenly, every ninja in her clan crashes into his room, wanting to chop his glizzy for breaking their princess's heart. Akuto quickly runs away, but as they chase him into the woods, a net traps and catches all of them. Suddenly, Eiko appears and smugly offers Akuto a place in her family, even offering him a taste of her pum-pum. He declines and says he simply doesn't like her. Offended, she threatens to murder him, but pauses to mention that he shouldn't have left Soga alone. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Soga quietly prepares to celebrate her own birthday, unaware that an assassin is sent to end her. Back in the woods, Eiko reveals that the assassins were sent by her father, the archbishop, and that her family is in charge of eliminating whoever deemed dangerous, and for some reason, their target this time is Soga. When she adds that Soga is already marked for death, Akuto loses control of his powers and nearly vaporizes her, but Yuko arrives to stop him from going nuts, giving Eiko the room to escape. Just then, Coronet arrives, saying she couldn't get any intel. Akuto demands she teleport him to the academy, but she refuses, explaining that she works for the government and their decisions are absolute. When he insists on going, she says she'll have to stop him and pulls out her gun. But then, she just drops it and tells him to pull her tail so she'll deactivate. He pulls it, deactivating her, and opens a portal and rushes to the academy. By then, the assassin has already begun strangling Soga, but he's abruptly ended by a samurai blade. The blondie emerges, then finishes the rest of the assassins like they're nothing, and reveals himself as Yamato Boy Chiro. Akuto steps out of the portal in time to witness all this, and he almost thanks Yamato, but the guy explains that Soga is an identity, one he plans to merge with to acquire the massive body needed to challenge the gods. Akuto asks why the government ordered her death, and Yamato replies that the gods have denied him, realizing Yamato only saved Soga because he wants to use her. Akuto unleashes his power and vows to protect her. Yamato cuts off Akuto's arm, but it regenerates instantly. As Yamato tries to slash him again, Fujiko appears with a squad of magical beasts. She announces she's found a way to make them obey her so Akuto can use them, and Akuto accepts immediately. Yamato asks if he really intends to wield such cursed power, and Akuto doesn't care anymore, and Yamato smiles, claiming that this is why he is the Demon King who will destroy the world. As the two are about to fight, magic beasts rampage through the academy, destroying everything. Then, Yamato calls his sword, and Fujiko is stunned, as transporting weapons with mana should be impossible with this many beasts running around. But Akuto tells her that he's not using regular mana. The two immediately go at it, while Hiroshi tries to process everything that is going on around him. Meanwhile, Eiko is trying to decode what's happening when her father, Kiyozo, pops up and warns her that Yamato has betrayed them. Eiko listens like a good daughter, but she suddenly stabs the old man in the heart and waits for him to bleed out before snatching his badge, which is the symbol of authority for their ninja clan. But then she senses an intruder, and the guy introduces himself as Tuve, who is Yamato's subordinate from the Ministry of Magical Intelligence. Over at Junko's place, her family is watching the chaos unfold live, and her father decides it's time to intervene and finish off Akuto, believing that he offed Kyuzo. He says that even though their clan has bad blood with Eiko's family, he insists they all need to work together against the bigger threat. Junko's dad pulls out their family's sacred sword, passed down for generations, and points out that nobody has ever managed to draw it. But then, Junko's grandmother steps in and hands her the family sword, believing that the legendary blade will deem Junko as the one worthy of using it. Back on the battlefield, Eiko gathers her ninja clan to fight Akuto's magic beast army. As she suits up in her hot ninja outfit, Tuve pops up, scaring her cheeks off, demanding to talk in private. Later, Eiko and Junko's ninja squads gather to strategize, and as their new leader, Eiko becomes obsessed with Junko's sacred sword and sends both sisters out as the first wave on a mission with no return, just so she can retrieve Junko's clan's sword. Yuko cheers at the chance to start slaying beasts, while Junko realizes Eiko is trying to get them out of the way, but she agrees anyway, since they have no real choice. On their way to the battle, Rei flies down and finds Yuko. She's happy to see him, but he spots weird markings around her neck, signs of magic beast mana, and Hiroshi gets mad at Akuto for letting a girl end up like this. Back in the battlefield, Akuto and Yamato finally throw down, and Yamato's sword is too much for Akuto and his mana regeneration. Just before Yamato can deliver the final slash, Fujiko swoops in, grabs Akuto, and escapes by sprinting across a magic beast's back, saying that they will need Peterhausen's help. When they get to the ruins, the headmaster steps in, ready to delay Yamato himself. Fujiko asks if he can actually handle Yamato, and the old prune is confident that he can. They enter the ruins only to be stopped by Riri, who blames Akuto for everything that is happening. Akuto assures her they'll leave after he meets Peterhausen, but Riri says it's pointless and shows them the chaos outside. Akuto and the girls brace for a fight, but Riri unexpectedly lets them through. There, Akuto reunites with the dragon, who tells him it's time to unleash his full potential. Akuto declares he's going to end God, which rises up Fujiko. Then, on Peterhausen's back, Akuto takes to the skies toward Yamato. As he prepares to strike, the principal intercepts him again. Junko tries a sneak attack on Akuto, but her sword still refuses to unsheath, so she uses her knife, which dissolves in Akuto's mana. Junko feels conflicted about her own feelings, not knowing what to do, but Akuto picks her up like a princess to calm her down. He says that he never expected her to have feelings for him like that and promises that after the battle is over, he will take care of her. He then sends her off back to the land, but suddenly, Brave arrives and damages Peterhausen. Impressed but irritated, Akuto fights him midair, and Brave demands that the Demon King explain why he's doing this, and Akuto tells Hiroshi that he is defying God himself, who wants to take Soga from him. While they prepare for a real fight, Tuve tells Eiko to focus on finding the device Fujiko is using to control the magic beasts. Eiko dispatches Junko and Yuko to retrieve it, and Yuko takes off running, while Junko chases after her. Suddenly, Junko sees a mysterious man about to attack Yuko. She intercepts the strike, and ninjas rush in to back them up. Back in the sky, Hiroshi asks Akuto why he didn't use his power to change people's minds if he's so determined to change the world. Akuto reminds him that these are the same people who worship a false god and use it to justify discrimination. He declares he'll stop at nothing to break that system. Charging up, Akuto blasts mana into Peterhausen, giving him the strength to bite down on Hiroshi. Then Akuto starts preparing a deadly mana blast, but Hiroshi activates a skill that neutralizes it and drains Peterhausen dry. Suddenly, a massive government airship suddenly flies in on a mission to destroy everything. Instead of fleeing, Peterhausen tells Akuto they can recharge by flying close to the ship. Then Peterhausen's theory works, and they regain enough energy to fire back. With full strength, Akuto destroys the battleship, but it falls on him, dragging him down to the ground with it. Years ago, Yamato watched the Soga he loved get snatched by the Demon King of that era. Traumatized, Yamato dedicated his life to mastering time travel. But to his horror, he kept landing in different timelines where the exact same thing happens, where in every universe, Soga gets clapped by the Demon King while he would only watch. Now, jump to the present chaos. Junko and the others think Akuto got flattened under the battleship. But when all the magic beasts suddenly start swarming toward the wreckage, Soga tells Fujiko not to lose hope, as the magic beasts are all reacting to Akuto's mana. Junko also notices that Yuko is twitching from the same energy, so she steels herself and keeps fighting, praying that Akuto can crawl out of that wreckage. Meanwhile, Hiroshi heads toward the wreckage to find Akuto, but he runs into the headmaster in the middle of battle against Yamato. When the old man realizes that Blaze is one of his students, he tells him not to get involved, insisting it's his job to protect the students from the war. When Yamato lifts his sword, Hiroshi pushes past the headmaster and square up with Yamato instead, but his entire suit suddenly shuts down, turning him back into a weak doormat, and Brave refuses to respond to Hiroshi's calling. Here, Yamato reveals that he was the one who created that suit and left it on Hiroshi's family island. Yamato then raises his hand to finish off the headmaster, and Hiroshi tells him to stop and threatens to turn on him, calling him out for clearly designing the suit just to counter Akuto. He then offers to cooperate with Yamato in exchange for more power to save Yuko. Yamato finds this deal acceptable and spares the headmaster. Meanwhile, Soga tries to explain that she is still sensing Akuto's aura, meaning he's absolutely alive, but Fujiko suddenly catches something in the corner of her eye. Without warning, she hurls a potion that exposes Lipaz, the rubber-like dude from before. Fujiko pulls out her whip to teach him a lesson, but the more she whips him, the more the freak gets closer to busting instead, scaring Fujiko. Outside, Eiko's ninja army prepares to storm the ruins and finish Akuto off, but before they can even strike, Rara beats them all up, claiming that they don't have permission to overstep the council. She reveals that Eiko is the one who murdered her own father, their leader Keizu, and that anger Eiko, so she quickly orders her army to end her. But Rara bulldozers through the army, and when she reaches Eiko, the manipulative tries to spin a new narrative, saying that Riri is working with Akuto to destroy the world and lying about Eiko finishing her own father. The ninja army unleashes their entire arsenal on Riri, but her student council pulls up and supports her. As they team up to battle the army, their vice president is busy helping Fujiko and Soga against Lipaz, but he adapts almost instantly and cranks up his attacks. Suddenly, Yamato arrives to take Soga, and Fujiko recognizes him as the man who murdered her brother. Suddenly, Soga turns into a whole other person, like she's possessed, and tells Yamato that she's not the girl he's looking for and that his heart lies with someone else. But Yamato states that he's doing this for the greater good and knocks her out. Fujiko tries to stop him with her whip and accuses him of endangering innocent lives, but he fires back by saying she helped shape Akuto into the monster he is today before teleporting away with Soga. Meanwhile, Riri and the council have wiped out the whole army. Eiko calls Junko and orders her to stop them, but Junko hesitates, saying that Riri is a good person, so Eiko immediately threatens Yuko's life. Moments later, Riri and the council find Junko waiting for them, and seeing Eiko holding a knife behind Yuko, they instantly understand. Riri insists that she has to stop Eiko no matter what, so Junko orders her ninjas to initiate the attack. They all immediately get obliterated, who then confirm that Eiko ended her own father. But even after hearing that, Junko still powers up and attacks, and Riri responds by decking her with a punch strong enough to drop her, then tells her teammates to rescue Yuko. At that exact moment, Eiko tries to slice Yuko in half, but Hiroshi lunges in to block the attack. He then grabs Yuko and takes off to find Yamato, who teleports both of them to safety. Suddenly, the battleship begins to shudder and spark with lightning. Akuto stands up from the ruins, powering the entire ship with his mana as he finally claws his way free. Minutes later, he thanks the headmaster for the mana boost and tells the girls he needs to find Soga. As Akuto prepares for takeoff, Eiko orders Junko to stop him. Her ninjas beg her to obey since Eiko runs their whole clan. But remembering her grandmother's words as she passed down the family sword, Junko follows her heart instead. The truth finally unlocks her magic, letting her pull the ancestral blade free. She immediately tests it out on Eiko, but Korone blocks the strike, insisting Eiko must live to face the consequences of her crimes. Eiko tries to flee again, but then her resurrected father steps out and announces he'll correct her sins himself. Eiko completely malfunctions from psychological damage as Akuto and Hiroshi prepare for their clash. When Hiroshi asks why he has to challenge God and change the world as they know it, he replies that it's the only way for humanity to progress. But Hiroshi refuses to accept his plans because gaining more power as the Demon King could spell disaster for Yuko. Then, he prepares an anti-magic weapon to stop Akuto, and Peterhausen warns Akuto that his mana will be useless against the weapon. But Akuto reveals that he never planned to use magic against him. Suddenly, Akuto is yeeted straight into Hiroshi, who gets shocked when Akuto grabs his weapon despite the brutal effects on his body. As his arm starts melting away, Hiroshi tells him to stop, but Akuto presses even harder, so Hiroshi decides to release all his magic with a huge blast that deep fries his suit's motherboard. This causes them both to start falling, but after regenerating his arm, Akuto apologizes for going that far and assures him that he is only fighting for change to make a better world. Once they get back to the ground, Yuko rushes to Hiroshi and initially gets shocked when she sees that he is brave, but then she hugs him and says she never cared who was behind the mask. The next moment, her body reacts to Akuto's mana, so he turns to leave. And when Hiroshi asks why he can't just purge the mana affecting her, Akuto explains that one wrong move might leave her scarred for life. Meanwhile, Yamato makes it inside the facility housing the creature called Identity. But as he gets closer with Soga still unconscious, two chicks show up to stop him. But he easily cuts them down with a single slice of his blade. Then he activates the system and walks into Identity. But then it possesses Soga to remind him that he has tried to fight destiny through countless lifetimes. When Yamato asks why he has always failed, Identity explains that it has never been his duty in the first place. And this causes him to get emotional as he recalls spending centuries trying to win a battle he was destined to lose. As he continues sobbing, Identity tries to comfort him, but then he grabs Soga and says he has nothing else to lose. She then regains consciousness and tries to fight him off until Akuto finally shows up to stop him. But then, Yamato slices his legs, forcing him to stay still. Seeing this, Soga tries to help, but Akuto tells her to stop right before Yamato slices him right down the middle, chopping him in half. But then, Akuto appears behind him and blasts him away, explaining that Yamato was actually fighting a clone. He then fires off a gravity-amplifying skill that knocks Yamato out, but the android chicks immediately tell him to reunite with the Identity and accomplish his destiny by destroying humanity. Akuto refuses to do any of that and says that he only wanted to keep Soga safe. The two androids initiate the self-destruct sequence to end all of humanity by releasing the Identity's powers, so Akuto summons his trusted steed, Peterhausen, and flies off to destroy the entity. Upon seeing this, Yamato warns that he might not make it back alive, but he continues heading towards the Identity, so Soga also drops her clothes to activate her abilities. As they reach the top, Peterhausen blasts a hole into the Identity, entering of pseudo-space, but after flying into the deepest part and connecting to its mainframe, he asks Akuto for cover from the endless swarm of android samurais, because he has to drain out all the Identity's functions. Akuto then unleashes all of his magic at once to blow them all to bits, but this causes him to lose control and create a black hole since he has never used this much magic before. Akuto realizes that by releasing all of his power, he can destroy the whole God and the pseudo-realm, but he hesitates, second-guessing himself. Suddenly, Soga pops up and interrupts, pleading with Peterhausen to ensure Akuto's survival. The dragon promises to protect him, even if it means his own demise. The dragon leaves a tooth behind as a memento, and then sacrifices himself for them, leading to a blinding explosion that obliterates the facility and God itself. In the aftermath, Soga enters a mysterious spiritual realm, where she meets an alternate version of herself. This other self reveals that she is the reason Soga was targeted all along. Realizing they can give Akuto a normal life, the two merge their will and take action. And as the dust settles, the world witnesses the destruction of God. However, Akuto emerges alive and reunites with his friends. Strangely, the memories of his Demon King identity have been erased from the minds of everyone, except for his closest loved ones. It turns out that it was Soga's doing, who granted Akuto the chance to live as an ordinary student, as seen by how Yuko did not know that he was the Demon King. The next day, everything is back to normal, and Koro Ness still acts as his observer, even though it's not her mission anymore, and she just wants to stick around, seeing the peace around him. Akuto silently thanks Peterhausen and enjoys his new normal life, starting from practicing with Junko and eating with Soga. But then, the Anon gods decide to screw him over once more, as on the next evaluation. The stupid future reading bird once more calls him the Demon King, starting another chaos. If you watched this anime recap until the end, comment down below the Riz Demon. And if you love anime recaps like this, watch this video.